How's it going? Julian from WSOU here, joined by Stin from Chat Pile. You guys have a new album just came out. It's getting a lot of good reviews, a lot of reception. Cool World. What would you say to someone who's never heard of Chat Pile? What would you say to a new listener?
Well, I would say check us out. We could stand to have more people liking our band. Um, but if you're unfamiliar with what we sound like, if you're a fan of bands like the Jesus Lizard, Big Black, Slint, kind of the 80s and 90s wave of noise rock, but sort of just push through the lens of say like Godflesh or maybe dare I say Corn, heavier bands like that. That's kind of what you're probably gonna get from us.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And there's a lot of labels being tossed around for your band, a lot of sludge and noise being tossed around. How do you feel about those labels? And do you think that you could really categorize what you guys are?
Yeah, the label thing is really interesting to me because I understand the need for like genre tags. It helps people describe certain types of music or cultural movements, stuff like that. But we as a band aren't really too concerned about like what people call us. I mean, in fact, it's insane because we literally get tagged as like everything. Like we think of ourselves kind of as a noise rock band, which we do get called from time to time, but sludge metal seems to be the one that people have like landed on for whatever reason, and that's fine. But I always think more like bands like Crowbar, stuff like that, and we don't really play a lot of like blues scale like slow stuff, but hey, I do like those bands, so it's cool that we're in that category as well. But people call us death metal. People have called us death grunge. People call us new metal. I mean, I think maybe it's a testament to what we're doing that people have trouble categorizing us. But it's cool. I bring it on. I like the discourse around like the what genre we are.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And how do you feel about the reception of the new album? Are you like surprised? This is what you expected about working on this?
Yeah, well, I mean, we had no idea. Like, we knew that we made an album that we liked, which was really all that mattered to us. But it's been very, very cool that the response has been really overwhelmingly positive. Like, we appreciate that a lot. Um, you know, One thing I'm noticing is like at least from like the capital C critic, point of view, people really seem to hone in on like the message of the album, which is really great, but every review is like, oh, it's harrowing, it's nightmarish, it's disturbing and upsetting and bleak and da 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 da, but they never really talk about how like it rocks. Which is part of the intended goal of the record. So but hey, we'll take whatever positive criticism we can get, so we definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, I can definitely see why a lot of those reviews sort of go that way, that dark, evil, gloomy way, because my first listen to the album actually, I was sitting in some traffic on the Garden State Parkway, and in the distance I saw like this big plume of smoke rising, and that was right towards the end of when Camcorder was playing, and it fit so well.
Oh yeah, that
Like
would.
it was like the ultimate soundtrack to like just impending doom. Like it
Oh
sounded
yeah.
awesome. That was like the perfect experience for giving that album its first spin.
Don't get me wrong, it is the intent of the music to be dark and horrifying, but sometimes it's just funny because like we get compared to Swans a lot, and that's fine. Like Swans are a great band, but it's like you don't really like mosh to Swans or like nod your head to it really. And I feel like our music has way more, we have more in common with like AC/DC than we do Swans, but people don't really seem to pick up on that. So
Yeah. And what was the process of picking the cover art like? Are you guys trying to compete with Knocked Loose for best album featuring a cross on the cover of 2024?
What's funny is so I take the photos and do the layout of our album covers, and we had that photo locked in and the layout and everything turned into the label before the Knocked Loose record even came out. And then there's another, is it JPEG Mafia? Am I getting that right? I think it's the other cross album this year. So maybe it's just something in the air this year that made people feel that way.
Yeah.
But the reason we picked that though is, we always try to incorporate kind of local imagery into our album art and stuff. And usually that process is me just like driving around Oklahoma City and taking pictures of a lot of the weird stuff that is abundant in our city. And one day I was out, it was like a gloomy, kind of foggy day, and I there's been this like giant cross on the side of the highway just north of Oklahoma City. It's been there for 25 years or something like that at this point. And I just started driving around trying to get a good vantage point of it. And I was like, yeah, this kind of sums up sort of the vibe of what we've been going on, for this record. So that's just kind of how it came to be.
Yeah. And is there an overall message or vibe that you're aiming for? I noticed like a lot of the releases have those pictures you're using. And then I saw also in the Funny Man music video, it's sort of a slideshow of all these like liminal feeling images. So is there like a sort of emptiness and depressing feel of the Midwest that you're trying to like I don't know the word I'm looking for, like exemplify?
Yeah, it's more, I don't know. It's hard to like put like a really fine point on it, but I would say what we're really trying to do is kind of capture the side of Americana that isn't normally represented. It's like when people think of Americana, they think of like Route 66 and Marilyn Monroe and the Mojave Desert and like that kind of stuff, and that is, I guess, a part of the sort of tapestry of America. But the reality is these days that it's more, crumbling infrastructure and strip malls and highways, just bending to car culture and just like all this kind of stuff that in a way you sort of like blank out of your mind because it's just so abundant it becomes like white noise, but if you really stop and like kind of pay attention to your surroundings you sort of realize how like anti-aesthetic America really is,
Yeah.
and it just continues to get worse and worse. So I think we're really trying to capture that essence through the visuals of our project as a whole.
Yeah, and I think you're doing a really good job with that. And then I saw you really like your Twitter. You guys post some funny stuff. I saw a tweet mentioning that the two types of people in Oklahoma are yuppies and people that crash into the sides of houses, followed by pictures and news articles of people crashing into houses. That being said, what's the music scene like there in Oklahoma City?
Yeah, it changes through the years. Oklahoma City is it's bigger than you would think it is. I think we're like the 20th biggest city in America. So that kind of puts us like kind of in the middle. But all that to say that like our scene is kind of small, but it's been very, very active, since I've been in junior high or whatever. There's always DIY venues that pop up. There's even like I don't know what you would call it, just like established punk venues that have been around forever too, like since the early 2000s and stuff. Um, right now, like kind of I still kind of consider us to be in the sort of like post-pandemic era of the scene here. And it seems to be very, very much focused on like hardcore music, which is probably true in a lot of cities in America, but especially here in Oklahoma City. And that seems to be like the predominant flavor of like underground music happening. um, but I have a feeling kind of like with music is kind of cyclical in terms of like the culture, and you can kind of see like history repeat itself a little bit. And I do think we're probably on the verge of the hardcore bubble breaking just a little bit, and some of these bands splintering off to do kind of like weirder, more experimental type music. But yeah, for the moment right now, it seems to be young people making hardcore is kind of the predominant scene here in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, cool. And how did chat pile as a name come about? I'm pretty sure the exact definition for chat pile is a mound of finely crushed rock, like toxic waste.
Yeah, so in Oklahoma, there's a town called Pitcher, and it's actually one of the biggest Superfund sites in all of America. And the reason it came to be is during World War I, it was a mining town, and what they were mining for was lead, and a lot of that lead was used for munitions in World War I. But the byproduct of this like mining is this like toxic, like mineral like deposits basically, like they're toxic rocks, and there's mountains of these things in picture. Like they're literal mountains, like you can see them on the horizon and stuff. And uh, like the toxicity of these mountains got so bad that they basically had to abandon the entire city. And then eventually a tornado came and actually hit those mountains and made the place so toxic that like it's a ghost town now. Like literally nobody lives in Pitcher anymore. So that's where Chat Isle comes from.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. And why did you guys choose to go with the aliases? You being Stin, then Captain Ron on drums, Luther Manhole on guitar, and Reagan Bush on vocals.
Yeah, that was Raygun's idea initially because he came up with that Raygun Bush first and he just really liked it. But I think the inspiration kind of mainly comes from the Dead Kennedys. We were trying to do something along those lines. But like I mentioned before, I'm a big Korn fan and they also used the nickname. So we just kind of thought it was a nice homage. And then it kind of had the unintended consequence of keeping us somewhat anonymous at our day jobs for a while. So that was a nice built-in feature of that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And then you mentioned Korn. I thought it was pretty cool that you guys released Cool World the same day Korn released their debut album,
Yeah.
October 11th.
Yeah, that was like a really crazy coincidence. We had no idea, that was not intentional, but I think I mentioned on Twitter, it seems kind of like it was inevitable, in a universal sense that that would happen. So we're honored to share the date.
Yeah. And then also, I've seen some comparisons to Primus, and I can definitely see it. I saw one of your tweets that called Chappelle modern day Primus, and you responded saying, if that's true, I need to get way better at bass. How do you feel about those comparisons? When I recommend Chappelle to people, I kind of say it's like a sludgy, dark, evil Primus.
I don't mind at all. I love Primus, like huge band for me when I was growing up for sure. So I really don't mind any comparisons that we get. People love like kind of going back to the genre thing. People really love discussing like what genre we are, what bands we sound like. And all of it's kind of fun to me because for the most part, people are right. There's a few bands that people will name drop, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, no, nobody in this band cares about that. But it's just, I don't know. It's like, it's just kind of nice to have people talk about you in general. So whether they're hitting the mark or not, it's just kind of nice to see that people care enough to even think about it.
Yeah. And what would you say some of your biggest influences are? I know I've definitely heard Godflesh, Big Black, and then of course Primus Corn.
Yeah. I think like maybe at the core of it, like the Jesus Lizard and Godflesh are like the two big ones. Like that I would say is like the thesis statement of the band. It's like if what happens if Jesus Lizard and Godflesh kind of met up. But there's all kinds of stuff like Para Ubu is a big one for us. Sonic Youth is a big one. Nirvana is a big one. You know, even like death metal stuff like Disembowelment and Demilich and stuff like that. We all in the band have like really varied and deep music taste because we're just music nerds, and kind of all the stuff that we've loved our whole lives gets kind of thrown into the pot. We try to take an approach to where there aren't really many rules as far as like what is allowed and not allowed sonically in the band. So, we just kind of like take the stuff we like and throw it all together. But yeah, I mean, if you want to boil it down, it's just kind of like sludgy noise rock.
Yeah. And then we were mentioning Godflesh. I heard you and Luther talk a lot about being influenced by them and also taking inspiration when it comes to recording the drums using a digital kit. Is there anything that you guys did majorly different during the recording of Cool World?
Yeah, actually, so Cool World is the first time we ever outsourced the mixing to somebody. So up until this point, we've recorded and mixed every release ourselves. And this time we still recorded ourselves, but handed the mixing duties off to Ben Greenberg from Uniform. So that was really nice. Because mixing, if anyone's, in a band, I think they would agree that like mixing a record is maybe the most horrible job of the entire existence of a band. It's just really tedious. You end up like listening to the same music over and over and over until it has no meaning anymore and you don't even know what you're doing. So there's a lot of downsides to it. And then on top of that, it's technically complicated, right? So we were a little worried about handing it off to somebody else because we didn't want to lose whatever magic that may have existed in our previous releases, but Ben really understood what we were going for and made that process just like really enjoyable and fun. Actually, it was cool. So it might be a while before we go back to mixing our own stuff, I think.
Yeah. And why did you guys choose those tracks to be the singles, Funny Man, Mask, and I Am Dog Now?
So that's kind of one of those things that gets decided by committee. It's like everyone in the band has a say, the label has a say. And I feel like everybody kind of like was drawn to those songs immediately because they just feel really representative of the like essence of the album. Like Funny Man, especially to me, is like the penultimate like chat pile song. It has everything that we do in like one song. So I felt pretty strongly that that out there. Um, same thing with I Am Dog Now. It's like it sort of reminds people like, hey, this is what we do. This is like the type of music that we make, it basically in its essence. And then with Mask, that one's obviously a more melodic track, but it seems to be the one that like people, when they would listen to the record, like we would preview it, and people really, really love that song. And I mean, we do as well. But we just kind of noticed that that one seemed to be perking people's ears up a little bit. And we figured it was probably worthy of having it out there for people to preview.
Yeah, that being said, are there any songs off of Cool World that you're surprised to see resonate with people?
Yeah, the New World seems to be like kind of a sleeper hit in terms of like a fan favorite for people. And I think in our eyes, we thought of that one as like kind of a deeper cut. Not because we don't like it or anything, but it just, I don't know, it's not like as immediately satisfying maybe as some of the other tracks on the record, but people seem to really be drawn to that one. And then Frownland is another one that people really seem to like as well. So those two have kind of emerged as songs that are, piquing people's interest.
Yeah, and is there one that you're most proud of?
Camcorder is maybe like the chat pile song I'm most proud of, like in general. It's kind of like a slower burn. I think it takes a couple listens to really understand everything that's going on in it, but I think we just constructed like a really, really great kind of doom metal track with that one. So I think people will come around to Camcorder over time.
Yeah, for sure. And I love when songs are so packed with so much detail like that that it takes like one, two, or three listens for it to actually click.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been noticing that because some people will be like, oh, it takes a dip or it slows down. And then, like, 2 weeks later, they're like, actually, this is the best song on the record. So it's like, yeah, you just got to sit with it a little bit.
Yeah. And is there any track that's particularly hard to play live or just any track in general that you really, really like to play live?
That on the new album, Shame and Mask are both very difficult. It's funny because they're kind of like the more melodic tracks, and so go figure, those are the ones that are actually like harder to pull off live. I actually might go as far as to say that like Shame is the hardest of all the Chat Pile songs in general. Like for whatever reason, that one we have to like practice over and over and over to like really hit the stride of it.
Yeah, and is Reagan the primary lyricist?
Yeah, he's the lyricist. Like we don't even give him input or anything like that. That's all him.
Gotcha. And you guys have got some tour dates coming up in the US and also in Europe. Are there any shows in particular that you're really looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Like there are cities that we always have like a good time in. Like I always love playing in Philly's like super fun. New York is always really fun. But honestly, just all of it, like we've been so excited to go on tour and just like kind of be on the road again. I think we're looking forward to like every aspect of it. And then we've never played like mainland Europe before ever. So like we're really excited to do that. It's going to be really cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to pick like one city over another because it's like you just never know what the vibe's going to be at any given night. Like for instance, one of the biggest shows that we're playing is in Chicago, but it's on election night. So
Oh
that's
boy.
going to be the vibe is going to be very weird, but it'll be fun. So come out if you are having any doubts. Get your frustrations out that night if you live in Chicago.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely gonna try and catch you guys in Philly. You guys are playing at the First Unitarian Church. You guys ever
Yeah.
played there before?
No, first time. We've played Underground Arts the last two times we've been in
Oh,
Philly. So,
cool.
yeah.
That's a sick venue. Both places really cool.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
Yeah. Is there anything that you really like or dislike about touring?
The dislike from me is just I'm a person who really appreciates getting like a good 8 hours of sleep every night, and you can just throw that out the window with touring. Because you're just always on the run, and like load-in times these days have keep getting earlier and earlier, which means you have to be up earlier and earlier. So that part of it's a bummer, but everything else is honestly pretty fun. Like it's just fun to be like, the guys in Chat Pile, we're all like friends. Like and had been like friends forever before the band. So it's just kind of a fun excuse to get to like hang with the dudes and have a good time. We never thought our lives would be like this, like touring musicians in any like reasonable way. And the fact that we get to do it is just like cool, man. And we definitely do not take it for granted. And it really becomes apparent how cool it is when we're on the road.
Yeah, are there any favorite places you guys have to eat on tour? Some food spots?
Favorite spots, man. Here's the thing to know about Chat Pile is that we do take our meals very seriously. So we're usually padding that time in everywhere we go. We're like all big like diner people. So every single morning, at the expense of our health, we are definitely going to like a diner and getting like a big breakfast. So that's like really important to us. And then Ron is the OG vegetarian of the band, but now everybody except for me has gone full vegetarian, which means that we eat like Greek food constantly because it has a little bit of something for everybody. And now, since I'm the last man standing, I imagine I'll be eating Greek places every single day of the tour. So, or Indian food too. That's like another one that kind of helps satisfy all diets.
Yeah. And do you feel any pressure to cave into vegetarianism?
Um, I'm not opposed to the idea, but I am actually like a pretty avid home cook. And I feel like if I went full vegetarian, I mean, it would just be a matter of me learning new, methods of cooking, which isn't a bad thing. But because of that, I'm a little slower to come around, I think, because I've just gotten really good at cooking meat.
Yeah, yeah. It's
But I
hard
do think
because
it's ultimately like it's better it would be the better decision to make. It's better for your health, it's better for the environment, it's obviously better for animals. So, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not rushing to do it anytime soon.
yeah. And are there any memories from a tour or any shows in particular that really stick with you?
The first thing that pops into my head is like kind of early on in the band's history. We played this house show in Austin, Texas, with Portrayal of Guilt, and it was one of the wildest. It looked like it was like something out of an '80s movie or whatever, where like people were just going insane in this like big house. It had like this. Like the typical like sitcom living room setup where like the couch is in front of like a staircase that goes up.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
set up exactly like that. It was like the Full House or something, and it was just packed. People were like jumping off the railings. They were. I mean, I can't believe that this house even survived this insane house show that we played. But yeah, that one was cool. Like, quite the cliche of my life is a movie or whatever. That's what that felt like that night.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. The vibes must have been immaculate.
It was crazy.
Yeah. Especially since coming off this album release, a lot of people are talking about Chat Pile. You guys are very hot, the talk of the town in the metal community. At what point in the band did you start to really notice that reception and this growing momentum?
Weirdly enough, it was really early on. Like, we put out our first EP within like maybe like 2 months of even like starting playing together. And from the minute that EP hit the internet, there was just like buzz like right out of the gate. It was really weird. And not to say that we were like a huge band or anything, but it was just one of those things where like we expected to be ignored forever. And so the fact that people were like online talking about this, like our first two EPs kind of blew our mind. And we already felt like at that point we had exceeded any expectations we ever had as a band. Um, and then, uh, you know, another crazy moment was like Matt from Portrayal of Guilt just hit us up out of the blue to like play shows with them. And, Portrayal of Guilt was a band that we all liked already and looked up to. And the fact that like they knew who we were and wanted us to play shows with them, like kind of blew our minds. So that was like a moment for sure. And then that year that those EPs came out, Anthony Fantano put us on like the best EPs of the year list. And that was just like, what is going on here? Like how do people know about our band? It's like so crazy that this is going on. And then pandemic hit, and we were like, okay, well, this is over. And then it just kind of kept growing momentum. It was like really weird, like this kind of word of mouth thing that the more people heard it, the more, popular we were becoming. And then the Flenser reached out to us, and the fact that we got signed was like beyond our expect. I mean, it's like I guess what I'm getting at with this history is that every step of the way, it's like there's always some new thing that we just like can't believe is happening to us because we just always assume that we're at like the end of the road in terms of like the popularity of the band. And it maybe we haven't quite hit that peak just yet, which is great. But yeah, I don't know. It's like every single day there's some new surprise that is like, wow, this is still happening, huh?
Yeah. And what can you tell me about the way you guys navigated the pandemic, how you came back to start playing again, getting shows, and if you used that time alone to write a lot?
Yeah, so from March to June, we just like didn't leave our houses at all. We just didn't do anything. And then around June of 2020, we were like, okay, we've got to like do something. We're going to go insane if we don't have some form of like human contact. And also we should just keep the band going. So we kind of made an arrangement among ourselves that like we would be like the only people that we come in contact with, like we'd be our bubble. And so we started getting together at our practice space, like wearing masks and all that. And we just started like writing God's Country. And oh, and we also worked on the soundtrack for the movie Ten Killer. So we were working on both projects kind of like during that time frame. And then around the time that, people started going to shows and stuff again, we just booked our own tour with Meth and Nerver in the Midwest. And that was really crazy because prior to the lockdown, I think we had only played maybe shows or something as a band. And then all of a sudden we're doing this little like DIY tour together and we're playing in front of like, 200, 400 people every single night. Having barely like played live. It was like really crazy. It was cool, but I don't know if we were like totally prepared for like what was waiting for us on the other side. And then by the time God's Country actually came out, things just blew up. And it's been, kind of crazy ever since then.
Yeah. And what can you tell me about the soundtrack you guys worked on? I mentioned before, you guys definitely sound like the soundtrack to a horror movie.
Yeah. So the story behind that is we had a little like write up in our local alt weekly here in Oklahoma City, or very early on in the existence of the band, and this local filmmaker read that article and was like, "Oh, hey, you guys are like exactly the type of music I'm looking for this like movie I'm making." So he sent us the script, and we like took a look at it, and we're like, "Sure, yeah, we'll score this movie." And that was like kind of the extent of it. They ended up hiring Raygun to like co-star in it, so he's like a big part of it. And then once they had a cut of the movie put together, they just gave it to us and are like, "All right, put music over it." So that was really really fun because we got to do stuff that's like very much out of the norm of like typical chat pile music. We got to really exercise our like improv skills and all that kind of thing. And it was fun. I have a very brief cameo appearance, but Raygun's like in the whole thing, and I know it was like a highlight of his year, like being able to act in that movie. So it was cool, cool learning experience, and we'd love to score another one day.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And what was it called again?
Ten Killer.
Ten Killer.
Yep.
Nice. Are there any present day bands that you really like? Some bands that have come out like the past 5 years or so?
Oh yeah. So I always like to take this opportunity to highlight the bands that are happening in Kansas City right now. Kansas City, Missouri, um, has maybe one of the best like underground rock scenes in all of America right now, in my opinion. And so you've got a band called Nightosphere who put out the best record of last year, in my opinion. It's called Catabasis is the name of the record. And they're incredible. Like they're going to be touring with us in February, doing our West Coast stint of shows for Cool World. But check them out; they're absolutely amazing. Nerver, who a band that we've put a split out with in the past. They're from Kansas City. They're incredible. You have Flooding, also from Kansas City, kind of a cool sort of doomy slowcore type band. They're really good. And then there's another band called Executive Missouri Executive Order 44. I think I've got that name right. And that's Matt Perrin from Bummer. That's his new band. And yeah, all that whole scene. There's more bands too, but those are like the ones that I can think of right now. But yeah, Kansas City has it going on, man, big time. They're a really cool scene they've got.
Yeah, cool. We'll make sure to check some of those guys out. And are there any bands, past or present, that you think are severely underrated, don't get the recognition they deserve?
Oh yeah, I mean the list is endless with that kind of thing, but I'll just shout out. Maybe this isn't underrated because people do know who this is, but Hell, that band, or like any of the projects from MSW, I think like are is like some of the best heavy music happening over the last like 15 years or so. And the fact that Hell isn't like a household name is like crazy to me because they're so good.
Yeah. And do you have a personal favorite bassist, someone you consider to be the best of all time?
Yeah, I mean Chris Squire from Yes is like definitely up there for me as like the greatest bass players of all time. And like to me, great bass playing is goes far beyond like technical skill. I think it's more like taste and style and tone and that kind of thing. And I think it's really hard to beat Chris Squire. But of course, Dave Sims from the Jesus Lizard is a big one for me. And then Fieldy, like, come on.
Yeah. And do you have any side projects or stuff that you're really passionate about outside of Chat Pile?
I definitely all of us have like hobbies and stuff that we're obsessed with. As far as like side project music goes, Ray Gunn has like a solo project that he's done since, he was a teenager essentially, and that's still active. Luther Manhole is jamming with some guys here in Oklahoma City for kind of a more hardcore leaning project. Um, Ron, our drummer, he's working with a guy named Ryan Lawson on like a kind of a sort of like a singer-songwriter country tinged type record. And then I do tons of kind of ambient and noise type stuff, while I'm working on chat pile projects. And here's a bit of news. We're actually in the process of launching a little imprint cassette label because we have so many like side project things that we just want to get out into the world in an easy way that we're just going to start putting all our own little projects out through this tape label, and that's going to be coming up here pretty soon. So
Yeah, wow, that's pretty cool. Can't wait to see where that goes.
yeah.
Thank you, Stin. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. It's been great. Is there anything you want to leave off with, like a statement just for the listeners?
Yeah, free Palestine.
Absolutely, man. Really, really like the message that you guys have in a lot of your songs, especially why. Like it's such a driving force with heavy music to have these issues that make us angry and to translate that anger into music. There's really because it feels like there's almost nothing we can do about it. The making heavy guitar and yelling seems like all we can do. So
Yeah.
it's a good outlet.
Yeah, well, we liked, or maybe I should say, I like to say that I'm not under any illusion that like the what we do is going to change the world or like the political messages in our music are going to change anything. But the fact that we can offer maybe a catharsis for the frustration about those things, I think that's better than nothing.
Yeah.
So happy to be able to do that for sure.
Yeah. For sure. Gets people thinking.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much, man. Hope you
Yeah.
have
Thank
a
you.
good one, and I really hope I get to catch you guys when you come around to the Unitarian Church.
Oh, yeah, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate
Best of
it.
luck with everything, man. Take
Yeah.
care.
See ya.